I don't know if Johnny Manziel's thought process was, if I go after him, like, I get all the attention and all the headlines are on me. Like, I don't know if that was the premise of that, but all the Barstool people just started dunking on him left and right. Welcome to Empty the Bench, episode 284 on the Empty the Bench podcast network, presented by Playback. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. 25 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers. So please hit the subscribe button. Whether you're watching on the video side, hit it below. From the audio side, go over to youtube.com/ETB Network to like and subscribe to our channel. If you can't listen on the video side, listen to Empty the Bench or any ETB Network podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And we are presented by Playback. We do a lot of streams on there, baseball, NBA. We have some other stuff planned. We have some podcasts over there. We have a NFL podcast, which is going to start when the season gets underway, noon to 1 Eastern, leading right up to kickoffs. Gridiron Gurus, which is going to be great. Basically, you want to check your actives, your inactives, and right up to the 1 p.m. Eastern kickoffs. So we have plenty of things in the work. Playback.tv/ETB Network, but you'll hear a message later on in the show. Okay. A lot to get to this week. Some on the field, some off the field, and very peculiar stories, to say the least. But Anthony, how are we doing?
We're doing real good. We got a lot of football coming up. I know we did have a little sneak peek last week with the Hall of Fame game. Now we'll get to see all 32 teams in action. We got some football news to talk about on the show. Some good, some bad. We have a lot of stuff that's going on in the MMA world. Obviously, baseball is going on, and we're really starting to get to the best time of the year. So I'm very excited and can't wait for the fall. It's been a really hot summer for not just me in Buffalo, but for pretty much the whole country. So I think I speak for everybody when everybody's asking and waiting for that fall weather.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but I kind of like the fall as my favorite time of the year. Well, not just because of football, but excuse me, but it's just that time of the year. It's a little bit cooler. You don't feel like you're going to burn and crisp up to death outside.
Not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly. But football's back. College football's back. Football Forecast and Forever Power 5 are back in a couple of weeks. So it's that best time of the year. But all right, let's get underway. Unfortunately, we got to start with this story again. The New York City gunman sought help from medical issues before the awful shooting that took place at 345 Park Avenue in the city. You and I were discussing this before we got underway. I now have more questions than I've ever had, including a line which we'll get to later on. But do you want to talk about some of the things you told me? Because I didn't even know some of the things you told me.
Yeah, like you said, this story gets crazier and crazier as we get more and more information. And it looks like this could have been potentially preventable. I mean, obviously, the guy who made this unfortunate mistake and took these people's lives, he obviously has some mental health issues and was sought getting help. So, I'm all for, not having stricter gun laws. But if you're seeking medical help and you have any sort of mental health issue, you should be put on some sort of list to prevent you from getting these firearms. And I guess the one of the top representatives at the casino was the one who legally gave him the firearm. So this is definitely something that it's a head scratcher and something that shouldn't have been happening. It looks like there was multiple mistakes by multiple parties involved that led to this occurring.
It also says that he began having headaches while he was playing high school football in Southern California, and they continued into adulthood. Why is no one picking up on these signs? I don't understand. If you're facing issues from the time you're young in school, nobody, no doctors. Like, I know when you and I were younger, the physical conditioning and rules were different. There was no such thing as, well, we got to protect everybody and you got to have 4 checks before you're allowed to play football or any contact sport. But to not know that he was having issues, that he was apparently laying down on ice, essentially, after overnight shifts working at a casino, insecurity nonetheless, which is kind of ironic a little. But this story gets stranger and stranger and stranger as I read it. And it says also it looked like he either was in the hospital or whatever. But the line that got me irritated, and we talked about this before we got started, brain experts who spoke with ESPN have cautioned against drawing direct connections between the shooting and the disease. CTE is a degenerative brain disease that can be diagnosed only after someone has died. Okay. I have a problem with this line. Not the second part, the first part. Brain experts who spoke with ESPN have cautioned against drawing direct connections between the shooting and the disease. Seriously? Like, seriously?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, how does CTE, which is affecting your brain, and your brain's the one who helps with decision making, how are they not correlated? It doesn't make any sense. So of course, if a person has brain issues or potential CTE, of course it's going to affect the decisions that they do make in their lives. And that's why this isn't the first instance. We talked on the show before about the decision that Aaron Hernandez made, and ultimately after he passed away and they did the test, he had tons and tons of severe CTE. And also with the tragic death of Junior Seau, who took his own life because of the headaches and because of the CTE he had. So I don't see how the NFL could say, or the doctors could say, there's no correlation, but I guess it's something that would be impossible to prove to the public and to the courts, that CTE is a direct cause of this. And, the NFL, who has all this money and all these billionaires, they're going to cover their bases and not have football be looked at a bad light, because if this was to get out that ultimately that is the cause of it, then there's going to be so many parents out there who are going to continue not to let their kids play football.
Right. I mean, I just have a problem because it sounds like a legalese line that they're putting into an article just to say, oh, don't blame us. Don't blame us. We're just doctors. We don't want to be sued by the NFL. We know CTE is a problem. We know contact sports. It's a huge problem that we have. And contact sports are aggressive, and all this information is coming out that more contact sports is not good for the brain. It's not good for the body. But don't come out and say that they don't correlate with one another. Of course, CTE is going to be correlated with contact sports. You're basically telling everybody, oh, don't worry about CTE. There's no way it could directly be correlated. It's like you just said. Our brain is our decision-making portion of our body. If we make these decisions, like this moron who decided to go into where the NFL headquarters are, and not just the NFL headquarters, everybody else in that building included, because I want to be careful because of the Skip Bayless tweet that he put out. But at the same time, it's not right. It's not right. It's not... Whoever these brain experts they talk to, it just sounds like they were worried they're going to get threatened by the NFL. This is not the first time the NFL has threatened people. We had the whole documentary that talked about CTE issues and how the NFL is, how would you put it? Like they're basically just kind of wiping it off the shoulder and not worrying about it.
Yeah, they're basically just covering all their bases and making sure that there's going to be no liability on them. I mean, I know this guy didn't play in the NFL, but at the end of the day, he played football, and football is obviously correlated with the NFL, whether you make it all the way to the big leagues or not. If you have a history of playing football, more than likely, you're probably going to have some sort of CTE. It is crazy, though, because there's other contact sports like hockey where we really don't see this issue. I mean, hockey players get a lot of, obviously head injuries or concussions. but not near to the level as football players, because I know with the way the brain works, it's not the big hits that really cause CTE. Like a hockey player will get one big hit in a game and then kind of be able to be fine most of the regular game. It's the tiny little hits that keep happening over and over and over that cause these bad issues. And when you got football where it's just these hits over and over and over, and especially offensive defensive linemen who are smacking each other in the head play after play, that's what causes the really bad severe CT. So I think that's why we see it more often in a sport like football, or maybe in a sport like boxing, where they're constantly getting these little head injuries. And this is why we see boxers and football players who really don't make good decisions off the field or outside of the ring.
What's interesting is, as I keep reading more and more and more, his parents, who lived in California also, his father was a police officer in California. So that's a little shocking, surprising, a little, but his brother also played football as well. So it obviously runs in the family. Apparently he was a very good athlete. He ran track as well. A lot of people apparently said he was a good guy. Well, not that I really believe that at this point. I don't know. This story, I don't know what you do. You need better security. I'm just going to say it again. You need better security. I saw some news stories that they were doing on it. And one of the people who was going to do business in the building said he showed up early purposely, thinking there was going to be like 1 million checkpoints in the building. One person.
That's
One person.
And we spoke about this last week. Like, even when you were working in radio, you had the little key card that you had to scan. And it's like, how do you not have badges? Like, how is this guy able to get through, only one checkpoint, or not many people that are able to get that? He shouldn't have even had access to even get as far as he got. And it's just unfortunate, Nick, like you said last week. Why does these protocols have to be put in position after the fact than before the fact? Just like we had with 9/11 with, the lack of security we had with airports. We have it now. But it's something that we should have always had. And it just sucks that people's lives have to be lost for us to have to learn.
When I was working in the new building, not the old one, when we moved buildings, we needed the badge for 2 checkpoints before I could go up to the floor that I was on. One was to open the turnstile or the opening gates, and the second was to actually activate the elevator. Because now in a lot of buildings, you need the card that you are key carded for. You put it in the elevator, and and sometimes it'll even just take you to the floor that you go to, because that's how the elevators are programmed now. So it makes me wonder if there's either old technology in this building or something else. But it scares me that this guy was seeking medical help before this whole thing happened, which means there's either something wrong with our medicine in our system, or he wasn't talking to the right help to get help. So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be more out of this at some point, because I don't think this is over by any means. But would you want to work in that building anymore after seeing that type of thing? No, I wouldn't.
I guess at least now I mean, the odds of this happening a second time are slim to none. So I guess the one side of relief, which, like you said, it's a little too late now, but I guess the fact that this has happened one time, that this building or security is going to be on top notch going forward. So they're not going to allow this to happen a second time. So I guess I would feel a little safe, but I guess that thought's always going to be in the back of your head.
We'll see what happens, but it's not a good story by any means. All right, moving on to something a little bit different. You and I were kind of discussing this a few days ago, but Johnny Manziel has made headlines, and you're probably saying, wait, Johnny Manziel, where did he come from? And so Gillie the King, who works for Barstool, I forgot the name of the podcast they do, but it's a really successful podcast. I'm going to look it up because I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, he was at a I think it was like an Eagles event because he's an Eagles fan. And he was holding up, I don't know if that's a real Lombardi trophy or not, because I doubt the real one would be out in public. But he basically was making comments about Cam Newton. And he said, Cam ain't never had one of these, and I ain't going back and forth with you. Now, apparently that rubbed Johnny Manziel the wrong way. And basically he quote tweeted a tweet from another account that posted the video. Is it, yo, at Gillie the Kid, you may be the biggest effing loser on the planet. Taking like you've effing done anything on a football field. If I see you, just know I'm going to slap the F out of you. Trust. Now, I see this tweet and I said, maybe it's fake because everything has a verification now on Twitter because you can pay for it. I said, let me originally give it the benefit of the doubt and let me go check before we make any accusations. But I go to look and it's his account. And I'm like, really, Johnny? Like, you have a terrible reputation from the NFL. And now, like, he's not poor because I think his family has oil money and all this stuff. So he doesn't have issues. But why did he have to get involved in this? Like, can you explain to me why he had to get involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he should let Cam Newton fight his own battles, but I'm on Johnny Manziel's side. Obviously, I don't condone, fighting or threatening to harm somebody. So I think Johnny Manziel could have went about it a different way, or maybe spoke to Cam Newton and had Cam Newton handle this out because Cam Newton can handle his problems himself. We know Cam Newton has a history of defending himself and going back and forth with other analysts or other guys in media, and he's not afraid of nobody, but I'm on Johnny Manziel's side. I mean, yeah, Manziel was the bust in the NFL. Yeah, when he got to the NFL, he'll admit to you straight out that he didn't try hard. He didn't love being in Cleveland. And, at a young age, he got too much fame and got too much notoriety that by the time he got to the NFL, he didn't really work hard for it. And that's why he was ultimately a bust. But a guy who was one of the best college football players of all time, a Heisman Trophy winner, probably, millions of people who played the game of football would love to have the career that Johnny Manziel had. And for a guy like Gillie the Kid or Gillie Da King, whatever the hell he calls himself, I mean, this guy is really full of himself. I mean, he walks around in these big hats acting like he's some guy who played in the NFL. And ultimately, he's got just as much credentials and just as much playing time in the NFL as me and you, Nick. And, whether the guys are bust or not, if the guys made the NFL or even has made Division I football, I'm not going to crap on him at all because that's something 99% of people don't get to make. I mean, we got to remember, out of all the high school football players that even get to make their varsity high school team, only about 7% of them can even make the college game, and less than 1% of them can even make the NFL. So you're talking about a guy in Manziel who's in the top 1% of 1%. And yeah, he didn't have the career that maybe you would like. And Cam Newton, a guy who made the NFL, had a couple of Pro Bowl level seasons, won an MVP, got to the Super Bowl and came up short. For Gillie the Kid to be calling him out, I think it's pretty lame. I don't think he has no notability or credibility to be calling guys out. And the reason why he did this was because Cam Newton came out. He ranked his top quarterbacks in the NFL. He did have Jalen Hurts ranked a little low. And his argument was, Jalen Hurts has Saquon Barkley. He's got A.J. Brown. He's got Devontae Smith, the best offensive line in football, the best defensive football. And we know if Cam Newton played on that team, Cam Newton may have also had a Super Bowl as well. I mean, we got to remember Cam Newton got to a Super Bowl throwing to guys like Ted Ginn and other players that we really don't know about anymore. So Cam Newton had a good career. Just the one thing he didn't accomplish was a Super Bowl. And Jalen Hurts does have that Super Bowl. And whether you want to argue who's better between Jalen Hurts or Cam Newton, Gillie the King or Gillie the Kid is the wrong person to be arguing that. And I think he should just keep his mouth shut. And I think Johnny Manziel is a former football player and another Heisman Trophy winner like Cam Newton. I think he's just sticking up for all football players because guys like him and Skip Bayless get allowed too many opportunities to dog and criticize these players when ultimately they haven't done anything themselves either.
I would say the one difference between Gillie and Skip Bayless is Skip Bayless does it for real. It's not a ruse. Like, we all think at times that Skip Bayless is kidding about stuff, but he's 100% on everything that he says and does. Gillie is a podcast host of a successful podcast. The name is slipping me at the moment, but it's a successful podcast at Barstool. He's more comedically speaking, if that makes sense. So, like, this is Gillie's personality on a daily basis. So I think it's a little different than Skip when it comes to Skip's going to say the dumbest thing every single day, and he's going to make you believe him, whether he's 1,000% wrong or not. I think Johnny overstepped his bounds a little too much. I understand where he's coming from, but Cam Newton's a man. I think he can handle himself. I've seen Cam Newton on First take on Stephen A. and do it quite well, actually. He's got a really...
He just had that argument with Ryan Clark, I believe, right? He was sticking up for himself then, too.
He's very good. He knows how to handle himself. It also helps that he was in the league, so he knows how to handle himself. I saw his podcast was set up at Fanatics. He's very successful off the field. I think he had, a 14-2 season, one season also, or 15-1?
Yeah, when they got all the way to the Super Bowl with the Carolina Panthers, and the one play that they always bring up was, I think, a one-possession game against the Broncos, and he didn't want to jump on that fumble because he was worried about breaking an arm and stuff, and he said going back, he would have dove on that football 10 times out of 10. That's his biggest regret, but ultimately he had a good season, and, he's probably a guy who's going to be just short of the Hall of Fame, but he pretty much accomplished everything but that Super Bowl win, so I don't think that anybody can sit there and say he had an unsuccessful career. I mean, I took the Carolina Panthers from nothing into something, and the Carolina Panthers haven't really had much success since Cam Newton has left.
I mean, to cross sports a little bit, I kind of think of Cam Newton as Carmelo Anthony a little bit, where Melo was one of the greatest players of his generation. It was kind of like great player, wrong timing when it came to being in the NBA. He was on a decent Denver Nuggets team, but there was just far too many teams ahead of them to win. When he went to the Knicks were a disaster when he went to the Knicks. It was just awful timing. And then the Stoudemire injury happened, and this injury happened, and this injury happened. So, again, one of the greatest players in NBA history out of Syracuse, played well. It was just bad timing. He had an incredible career. He probably will be in the Hall of Fame someday, Melo. And he's probably one of the most successful off-the-court players financially when it comes to investing and doing this stuff. But you don't see anyone crapping on Melo off the court ever, do you?
I think that's because Melo was a very nice guy who really wasn't controversial or said things that rubbed the people the wrong way, where Cam Newton is a very outspoken guy and says a lot of things that people are going to want to speak out about. So I think Carmelo Anthony is probably handling himself off the court better than Cam Newton has off the field. But on the flip side, I think you can make an argument that maybe not in terms of longevity, but in terms of their prime, Cam Newton's prime probably burned a lot brighter than a guy like Carmelo Anthony, because Carmelo Anthony, I believe, never won an MVP and never got to an NBA Finals, where Cam Newton has done both those things in his sport.
I do agree with you, by the way, that he should have dove on that football, and I believe him when he says he regrets not diving on that football, because what's the end game for an NFL player? To win a Super Bowl. That's your ticket, hopefully, eventually to a Hall of Fame someday, because he had the numbers to really go somewhere. If he had a title, I think, would that have made a difference being on the ballot a little bit more? Yeah, I think it would have.
And you got to remember, Nick, I think another reason why this is coming into fruition is because him and Jalen Hurts are a little bit the opposite, where, yeah, he carried the Panthers and won the MVP, but he didn't get the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had a really good team, but played really well and got that Super Bowl. And Cam Newton was on First Take saying he wouldn't trade his MVP trophy for a Super Bowl trophy, where Jalen Hurts wouldn't give up that Lombardi trophy for an MVP. So I guess that rubs people the wrong way of, are you a team guy or are you by yourself? So maybe that's where this is coming in. And, it's pretty hard to say whose career would you rather have, a Jalen Hurts or a Cam Newton. And right now it looks like with the trajectory Jalen Hurts is on, you may want to side with Jalen Hurts' career.
I mean, do I disagree with Cam Newton saying Jalen Hurts is further down on the list? Yes, I absolutely do. I think Jalen Hurts doesn't get enough credit for the amount that he did on the field to bring that team. It's always weird when former players or other players say, "Oh, well, he had Saquon and all these wide receivers," and you could have every star in the NFL. Does it mean you're going to win a Super Bowl? No, it does not. You still have to play the game. That's like the same people who say, well, on paper, they're the best team to win the Super Bowl. Do we play the game on paper? Do we play the game on the field? I mean,
No, I definitely agree, Nick. And I think, but on the flip side, too, you got to have those players to win. Yeah, if you have those players, that doesn't mean you're going to win. You can have the best team on paper. I mean, we've seen all these teams who win in free agency and win in the offseason and then don't do anything when the games are played. But you have to have those players to win the Super Bowl. And I think that's why the Bills, who haven't had the defensive help, is why a guy like Josh Allen hasn't got the playoff success that he definitely deserves. But like you said, just because you have a great team on paper like the Eagles, Jalen Hurts still had to go out there and complete those passes, not turn over the ball, and go basically head-to-head in 2 Super Bowls with Mahomes and pretty much outplay him in both games.
I'll give you 2 completely different examples in that theory. One is the Bills, who have an incredible team and have had an incredible team, what would you say, for the last 3 to 4 seasons at least? Like, they've won double-digit games, I think, the last 3 seasons at least. They were at the top of the conference the last couple of seasons, and it just didn't work out because they just either had bad luck or whatever. They had injuries. And then on the flip side, look at the Warriors, who went on that dynasty run where they won 3 in 5 years, and that happened to work out for them, that they got all the stars. But those are 2 examples where if you get all the names, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win or lose. You still have to play the game on the field, on the court, on the diamond, on the ice, because playing is what is winning, not what's on paper.
100% agree. I mean, look at the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens have probably been a more talented team than the Bills and have been just as good, if not better, each in the regular seasons, and they've come up short in the playoffs as well. So it just goes to show you, yeah, you need to have a great team to win, but just because you have a great team on paper, you still got to go out there and execute those plays.
And that's the interesting thing, because I think you and I have had this discussion about people, and I think it was Ryan Clark. We talked about this last year or on Football Forecast, that the whole Lamar versus Josh Allen debate and how Ryan Clark was being an absolute you-know-what about, what was it? Which argument was he taking? Against Josh Allen, I think. And it's just weird when people say, oh, well, this talent level, Lamar has this talent, and Josh Allen has this talent. Okay, that's fine. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the team surrounding you, who cares?
And I think we got to stop treating every loss as it's the same. I think last year Lamar Jackson played really good in the playoff loss that he had, just like Josh Allen pretty well in the playoffs he had. But there's been other years where, typically Josh Allen, in all the playoff losses he had, if you look at the numbers, he's one of the top quarterbacks in playoff history in touchdown percentages. He's one of the lowest turnover-worthy plays in playoff history. And then you look at Lamar Jackson, besides last year, he hasn't played well, and his numbers aren't great in the playoffs. So they're 2 different stories, and you can't treat both losses as the same.
Right. And by the way, again, it gets attention. Just to circle back to this, Johnny Manziel's tweet got seen 25 million times. All over something that was not necessary in my book. And it goes back to what I said about the Skip Bayless tweet when he went after DeMar Hamlin for what? He was technically dead for 30, 40 seconds laying on the field and could get up and play football. Just stop. I don't know if Johnny Manziel's thought process was, if I go after him, I get all the attention and all the headlines are on me. I don't know if that was the premise of that, but all the Barstool people just started dunking on him left and right, which I thought was funny, by the way. Now, I think the weakest argument is when one of them said, well, Gillie only has 7 fewer touchdowns and 7 less interceptions than you. That's such a weak argument in my book. Basically say, oh, look, he only was on the field for a little bit longer than I was. Dude, you didn't play football.
Yeah, I mean, and one guy is going to be a college football legend. Probably has his jersey and name are retired and going to be remembered in Texas A&M football for history. And in 50 years, no one's going to know who Gillie Da King or Gillie Da Kid, wherever he called himself, is.
Right. So, in theory, it's wrong, in my opinion, just because you didn't have to get involved. I get where you're coming from, too, that just don't speak out if you don't know what you're talking about. Just leave it alone. Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. All right, let's move on here. Let's go on the field. So this story broke a little while ago from when we were recording. According to Adam Schefter, NFL suspends Viking wide receiver Jordan Addison for first 3 games of the 2025 regular season for violating the league's substances of abuse policy. This is not surprising either.
Yeah, we saw this coming. I mean, I think this was something that happened last year, and we know usually the way these suspensions work, they usually get the suspension a year after because they just want to see what the legal proceedings are. I think it's stemming from a DUI that he had back in 2024. So we knew the suspension was inevitable. It just sucks for the Vikings. I knew we knew what's coming, but this is the team who's issuing a new quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who pretty much is a rookie. He missed his whole actual rookie season with that lower leg injury. So this is essentially going to be the first time we've seen him on the field. He only got to play a little bit of one preseason game, and he needs all the help and all the confidence that he could get in. The fact that when you look at the Vikings, yeah, they got Justin Jefferson, who's either the best or second best receiver in football. Addison's really the only other guy you can rely on. They do got a good tight end in T.J. Hockenson, but now that you have just Justin Jefferson, the defenses know the first 3 games, they're going to put 2 guys on him, and J.J. McCarthy is going to have to get the ball to other players. And if J.J. McCarthy gets off to a bad start, we know that these rookie quarterbacks essentially could lose confidence quickly, and they could just spiral out of control. So I think this hurts J.J. McCarthy more than ever. And the Vikings, who Kevin O'Connell has done really good with quarterbacks, he had the best year ever with Kirk Cousins, gave him the best years of his life, gave Sam Darnold the best career of the best year of his career. So he typically does good with quarterbacks. But man, if Justin Jefferson is to get any sort of injury, any of these other receivers get hurt, this could spiral out of control for a guy like J.J. McCarthy, who needs any bit of confidence that he could get.
I'm concerned with the Vikings. I already was concerned with the Vikings. Now that he's going to miss the first 3 games, first 3 games are crucial at the beginning of a season because usually, what would you say? It takes about 2 or 3 games to get loose into a season, and to not have your secondary wide receiver option. What stops teams from doubling and even tripling Justin Jefferson out in the field? I mean, it doesn't, right? I mean, you're taking that option away to spread the field, to give Justin Jefferson more catches. You're going to see teams double and tripling, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. And like you said, typically when the NFL season starts, usually offenses start off slow because offense is a lot about timing. It's a lot about chemistry. Defense, it really isn't. It's just about, being the better guy and being tough and strong and gritty. So typically the first quarter of the season, usually defenses are ahead of the offense. And then by the time we get to mid-season, that's when you start seeing all these offensive players clicking with a new quarterback trying to build the chemistry with all these receivers. Yeah, who'll be able to do it in preseason, but it doesn't really matter until you're actually in regular season games. So now they're going to be 3 weeks behind. So instead of them having, on the same chemistry on the same field, and on the same comparison in mid-season, you're probably looking at probably 3/4 of the way of the season before all these guys are on the same page.
Now, I looked at the schedule. It doesn't look like massive games that he's missing. I think 2 of them were the Hawks and the Bears. I think were 2 of the games out of the 3. It's right here. So he's going to miss Chicago, Atlanta, and the Bengals. So the toughest game on that schedule is probably the Bengals, I want to say. Because, don't get me wrong, don't sleep on Chicago either. But the Falcons are kind of a throwaway right now. So if he's going to miss 3 games, I guess it's not the end of the world for these 3 games for the miss. But
I can see them losing 2 of those 3 games. I mean, the Bengals with them not having a great defense without Jordan Addison, that plays right into their hands. Now their defense doesn't have to be as great as they're, have to be if they would have had Jordan Addison. And for J.J. McCarthy, who's going to have to go out there and probably try to win in the shootout against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, that's going to be tough. And I really see Chicago with Ben Johnson now and them taking the next step. We know that they got the talent. Honestly, Nick, that's probably one of the best divisions in football, if not the best division. And right now, heading into the season, I know we're going to do our videos. I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings are the 4th place team and the last place team at the division. I just don't see how this year, with a fresh new quarterback and this suspension and all the changes, how are the Vikings be able to compete with the Lions? How are they going to be able to compete with the new Bears who got Ben Johnson or the Packers? The Packers are still a good quality team as well.
I mean, I don't know. Not that I'm intending this as a hot take or not. I would have kept Kirk in Minnesota. That's just my opinion. I don't know if J.J. McCarthy could really be a good quarterback. I'm not saying he can't be, but they should have traded him when they had the chance to get some value for him before going through all this. They had to know this was coming down the pike at some point with Jordan Addison. The teams always know before we do. So I'm fairly concerned. Like, I have a high concern level for Minnesota because when they had Kirk Cousins, they were rolling. They were winning games. The defense was playing great. The offense was clicking. Him and Jefferson were like one of the best duos in the NFL last year.
Yeah, I think that they were just worried with Kirk Cousins having that torn Achilles a couple years ago, being 36 years old, and then you did already draft J.J. McCarthy. So yeah, Sam Darnold came in and had a great year, but they were worried. Did he just hit lightning in a bottle? Was he just going to be a one-year wonder? And they were probably worried on giving a guy like Sam Darnold all that money for 2 to 3 years when he drafted a guy in a first-round pick. And you can't just draft the guy in a first-round pick and never give him the starting role. You got to give him the opportunity, or basically you're the ones who look like morons by drafting him in the first round. So they kind of put themselves in a hole where J.J. McCarthy had to be the starter this year, and they had to give him every opportunity to succeed. And if you don't play him this year, then essentially next year he would be his first year starting anyways. And he's got to get this regular season game experience for him to become the quarterback that you think he could be. So we just got to hope that Kevin O'Connell can work his magic again for a 3rd time.
Well, I guess the last question I would have is, wasn't there significant trade offers for McCarthy, though?
Yeah, I think that there was. But they probably still wouldn't have got, I think they drafted McCarthy with like the 12th pick in the draft. They probably weren't going to get a pick nearly that value. They probably were looking at a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And I mean, how stupid does your GM look if you draft a guy top 15, top half of the 1st round, and he gets hurt, doesn't even get to play a regular season game, and now you're giving him off for a day 2, 2nd, 3rd round pick? It doesn't make the GM look good, and it doesn't make the coaching staff look good, because we know Kevin O'Connell is also playing a part in deciding what quarterback that they're drafting as well.
All right, that makes sense. But I think you and I both have concerns with the Vikings. That's for sure. All right, more football. Micah Parsons demands a trade from the Dallas Cowboys. This should not surprise anyone in the slightest, because we saw what happened with the Dak negotiations. We saw what happened with the CeeDee Lamb negotiations. If I'm not mistaken, his deadline essentially came all the way up to the first game of the season, didn't it? Didn't he miss like part of the first game or something because of not getting the contract done?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, we know Dallas doesn't really good with contract negotiations. It seemed like they just delay it, and then the market goes up, and then they have to overpay for these guys, when if they would have just paid them a year sooner, they would have got these guys for much cheaper. And now because of that, you had to give Dak Prescott $60 million a year. And I know Prescott was coming off of an all-pro season. He was, I think, 2nd or 3rd for MVP that year. So he's still a borderline top 10 quarterback when he's healthy, but to overpay him to make him the highest paid quarterback is definitely asinine. And then CeeDee Lamb was definitely worth the $34 million, but they signed him a year earlier. They probably get him for $30 million. Now you're looking at Micah Parsons. His situation is way worse and has been handled way worse than any of the other situations. I mean, supposedly he told them, just talk to my agent. We want to stay in Dallas. We want to retire here. Just speak to my agent and figure out a contract. And his agent was like, hey, Micah, why don't you just wait a year? Now, this was last year. He said, why don't you just wait a year? You're going to have guys like Miles Garrett and others get paid. The market's going to only go up. So why not wait? He was like, I don't care if the market goes up. I just want to get this done and over with. Let me get my contract now. Dallas decided not to talk to his agent. And for some reason, Dallas does not like to negotiate with other players' agents. They like to negotiate with the players themselves. And it seems like it never goes their way. You think, if I negotiate with the player, maybe I could get, a couple of advantages on them. Obviously they won't be as smart as the agent, but it seems like the players keep outsmarting the Dallas Cowboys. And Micah Parsons, who's tried to be the team player, tried to sign, they probably could have got him for $35 million a year last year. Now, because of the TJ Watt deal and the Myles Garrett deal, now he's going to be looking at $41 million a year. And after the fact that they still haven't spoke to his agent, Micah Parsons is sick of being the team player and trying to be the helpful guy in this side, and he's just done with it. He's fed up with it. And at this point, after them not talking to his agent for a year, he's just ready to move on and maybe talk to a team that will want to negotiate with his agent.
So technically, and the weird term that's been going on around training camps, and I forgot to mention it with Mclaurin and who we'll get to, the term is hold in. It's not hold out anymore. And people are probably looking at me and saying, hold in? What the heck are you saying? And I'm like, yeah, hold in. They're going to camp and sitting on the sideline so they don't get fined for refusing to go to camp.
That's absolutely genius.
It's genius, of course, because what are you going to do? You can't find them legally because they're in training camp. But I came across a tweet a couple days ago from Rock Nation Sports. That's Jay-Z's sports agency, who represents Micah Parsons. And it says in 2015, this is a direct quote from them. In 2015, at the 21 Club, on a napkin, Jerry Jones, Juan Perez, Sean Jay-Z Carter, and Stephen Jones negotiated a 5-year, $70 million deal, which included a $45 million guarantee and a $20 million signing bonus for Dez Bryant. At the time, it was the second largest contract for a wide receiver in NFL history. The claim that Mr. Carter or Rock Nation representatives did not return a call from Jerry Jones is not only a false statement, but it's also a comical one. So basically what they're trying to tell you is that Jerry's making up lies when it comes to contract negotiations.
Not surprised to hear that at all.
But there's also another rumor floating around that apparently there was a $200 million offer that was thrown out there to Micah. I don't know if you heard about this either, but if that's the case, if the Cowboys offered you $200 million and you refused, that's on you, Micah. That's on you.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. We'll never get the exact story, but it seems like with the tweet that Micah Parsons went out, it doesn't seem like he did get that contract offer. And I mean, I guess it's just he said, she said, and we'll never know the exact story. But I mean, if that's the case, if Micah Parsons was offered at $200 million, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what he's worth. A 4 to 5 year deal worth about $40 or so million, probably about around the $120 million plus guaranteed. So, I mean, if that's the case, then the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones are actually doing the right thing. But I just find that hard to believe because Micah Parsons doesn't seem like a guy that will go all the way out to these lengths to make up lies. And we know Jerry Jones has a history of not negotiating these contracts the best way for the team.
And Jerry has a history of making dumb statements about players. I don't remember the one he said about Dak, but he also said something about Micah also when he was talking to the media. Do you remember that or no?
No, I'm not sure, but I know he's always talking to the media, and I guess that's the bad part about playing for the Cowboys is you got an owner who is essentially your owner and GM, but he's also always in the media making comments and not saying or doing anything that's really beneficial for his players or the rest of the team.
It's just, I can't stand Jerry Jones. I think he's one of the worst owners in the NFL. Besides the Haslams with the Browns, Jerry cares more about his what's the word I'm looking for? Attention or his brand more than the Cowboys itself. We're more worried about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders getting a Netflix documentary. We're talking more about the Cowboys' history getting a documentary. What about the team that hasn't won since the 90s?
No, 100%. And I feel like the only two things Jerry Jones could do well was, one, hiring Jimmy Johnson. That's the only reason why he was able to build that dynasty in the 90s. That was Jimmy Johnson, who pretty much helped draft those players and build that dynasty. And Jimmy Jones wanted more of the control and more of the credit for winning. So he gets rid of Jimmy Johnson. Yeah, they won another Super Bowl, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team, not Barry Switcher's team. Then they really haven't had much success. And the only thing that Jerry Jones has really done well is draft offensive linemen. I got to give him credit. They do decently draft offensive linemen. They drafted pretty well. But outside of that, Jerry Jones hasn't done anything to bring this team closer to the Super Bowl. And they've always been a team since Jimmy Johnson's left that is a perennial playoff team, but they're never really getting past that second round of the playoffs. And that's been a trend for 20, 30 years.
So according to Jerry Jones about the trade request, quote, don't lose any sleep over it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's all
part of the contract negotiation.
That's your way of contract negotiating? Sounding like a horse's ass? Like just saying these dumb things? I mean, why do you think no one wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys? Like, the owner cares more about himself than he does about the team. Like, if I'm Micah right now, I'm out. I'm running away from this franchise. Every other team is going to go after this guy. Hey, Jets, do you mind picking up the phone and calling for this guy? I would appreciate it. Because our defense could really use a little help. But any team, your Bills would probably love him too. I mean, any team would love this guy. So, I don't know. I don't know. I would mark this one as a wash because I have no idea. Let's talk about the other situation. Terry McLaurin requests a trade from the Commanders. He wants, I forgot who he said he wanted money like. I think it was like the Steelers wide receiver. Who was the Steelers wide receiver that they traded for? Oh, Metcalf.
DK Metcalf was making $33 million a year.
He wants Metcalf money, is what he's reportedly out for. I don't think he's making anywhere near that money right now. He's been very good. He's been around for like the quarterback mess they've had there for years, right? I mean, so he's been through it all, and now he's finally getting to experience this team on the upward trajectory and winning. He deserves to be paid, I feel like.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, talking about a guy who kind of like in what Garrett Wilson was going through, where he never really had a great quarterback. And with the carousel of quarterbacks that Garrett Wilson was going through and what Mclaurin was going through, he was consistently putting up 1,100 yards, 1,000 yards every single season and was rated around a top 10 receiver, maybe not ever top 5, but always around that top 10 receiver mark each and every year. And a guy who never complained, was always a team guy, never demanded a trade before. And now you finally got him a great quarterback. The whole rest of the entire country is finally now able to see what this guy could do because now he's on a good team that wins games. So more fans and more of the country's watching him, and you get to see how skilled this guy is. And you look at some of the other receivers that are getting paid. He's definitely a much better receiver than T. Higgins, who's making almost $29 million a year. I think even though he's 5 years younger, at this point in time, he's a better receiver than Garrett Wilson, who is making around 32. And I think he's just as good, if not better, than DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf has pretty much had a great quarterback. He had started off with Russell Wilson and had Geno Smith, who was a Pro Bowl level quarterback. And he's a guy who not only a team had a trade for, also paid $33 million a year for. I know the one thing that scares people with the Mclaurin deal is the guy is about to be 30 years old, but he's only 2 years older than DK Metcalf, and I think he's a better receiver than Metcalf. So I definitely think he's worth the $33 million a year mark over probably a 3-year contract.
I think people are upset because of, well, at least he might be upset because of the Debo trade and bring him in and he's making more money. I think Debo brings a lot of value to this franchise, whether it's catching passes or he can run the football too. So he's a multifaceted player. Is he a better overall player than Terry McLaurin? No, he's not a better overall player. But Debo brings veteran experience on top of being able to be a multifaceted player. But if I'm not mistaken, I think the 49ers are still paying part of what he's getting coming over to the Commanders. So they need both of those guys because Mclaurin and Debo help each other on the field, spreading that ball out. So Jaden has plenty of time to throw the football. I mean,
and when you're in the same division with the Eagles, who look like the best team in football again, who have two great receivers in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, you need both these guys. And I mean, if you take, look at their team last year, who was an NFC Championship against Philly. If you take Terry McLaurin out and just put Deebo Samuel on there, that's not a team that's any better. That's a team that's probably worse. And you're further away from beating Philly. Now, if you got Terry McLaurin, who's one of the best outside receivers, with the guy who's all facet, all versatile with Deebo Samuel, that could be enough to close the gap between them and Philly. So I agree, Nick. They need both those guys if they want to close that gap and maybe get to the Super Bowl and win the NFC.
I mean, let's put it this way. If they lose Mclaurin for whatever reason, if they can't get a deal done, I think that could cost them 3 to 4 wins. I think, possibly, because Mclaurin is the difference in some of those wins they had last year. Catching the deep passes from Jaden Daniels. I mean, it makes a difference. It also allows Jaden to get out of the pocket and run, because once the field is spread out, he can take off and run if need be. That's his A game, I hate to say, but he's become a much better thrower toward the end of the season. I'm worried about a sophomore slump in year 2, but if you take your number one weapon away, that's not helping yourself in this scenario.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at Deebo Samuel, when was Deebo Samuel at his best? And when were the 49ers at their best? When they had a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who was a top 10 receiver opposite with them. You got to have both those guys, because since Deebo Samuel is not just a straight receiver, you really don't want to have him as your go-to guy, because you really can't use him versatile like that, because you have to just keep him on the outside almost all the time. I think having him with the Brandon Ayuk made the 49ers that much more deadly, and that's why they're basically in overtime a player or two away from winning the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. And I think that's why you need a guy like Mclaurin to basically be the Brandon Ayuk for that team.
I mean, Debo's value is almost more a decoy than anything, the way you look at it, because you could send him out on a route. You can keep on the line. Hey, I can't throw the ball. I'll hand it off to Debo and let him run 5, 6, 7 yards, and we're already preset to get another first down. Like, that's the way I really see it. Pay the guy. Seriously. Like, this guy is what? Probably in the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL right now, maybe even top 3.
At the very least, top 10. And top 10 receivers now are making $33+ million. I mean, T. Higgins, who's the number 2 receiver, who's probably closer to a top 15, he's making just under 30. He's around 28.5. So, I mean, McLaurin's got to be in, the mid to low 30s.
I mean, the way I see it, I see Chase and Jefferson like fighting for the 1 spot for the best wide receiver. I put Mclaurin not too far behind those two, to be quite honest. I think he brings a lot of value to that franchise. If you don't have him, that's going to cost you wins. So just pay the guy. And I see more value in Mclaurin for the Commanders than I do for Micah with the Cowboys. I think there's
one team's got Super Bowl potential and one other team doesn't.
That's a good point too. All right, let's move on. This is an interesting one. So if you've been listening to the news in the NBA circles, Gilbert Arenas rears his ugly head once again, and he gets arrested on charges of illegal poker games. Now, I don't know how much you've read up on this story or followed it. There's a lot to break down here. So apparently he had a mansion that he was not even living in, that he was basically using, like they were paying him as the renter, and they were playing high stakes poker games, almost like if you went to your average casino in Vegas or in upstate or wherever you go. And we're talking about like Omaha and Texas Hold'em, all these big games. Here's the issue, though. They were taking rakes from the pots, like basically as fees and dues. But here's the other issue. You need a poker gaming license to operate games like that, whether it's a private estate or like if you're using it for games or whatever. So, and the other issue is the people that were playing the games, they apparently were part of Israeli crime gangs as well. So there's a lot of issues going around with this. And I'm just trying to make sure I get this right. So he pled not guilty to the charges during his arraignment in Los Angeles. A judge ordered him released on a $50,000 bond. I think there was 5 charges, which all have a max of 5 years per charge. So it says the indictment alleges he rented out a residence he owned in Encino for the purpose of hosting illegal poker games in 2022. The filling, like the felt that they put on all the poker tables, it'll say like which casino or sponsor or whatever they put on the felt. It said Arenas Poker Club on it. So basically gave himself away in the process. Arenas allegedly directed one of the co-defendants to find people to host poker games at the so-called Gable House and collect rent from them on behalf. Other alleged co-conspirators are accused of managing illegal games at the mansion, including Pot Limit Omaha and other poker games, recruiting people to work the games and collecting fees from each pot, which is called a rake. The 5 alleged co-conspirators are charged with 1 count of conspiracy to operate an illegal gambling business and 1 count of operating an illegal gambling business. Prosecutors further allege that Arenas lied to federal agents in a petition seeking the return of funds seized from the Gable House when he, quote, falsely stated that he was not involved in whatever was going on in the residence, which was the night of an alleged illegal poker game. Thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you that Gilbert Arenas, who at one time was a good NBA player, hasn't really ever made the smartest decision. I mean, this is also the same guy who I believe brought a gun to the locker room. So I guess, the guy's been pretty clean up into that point, but I guess not so much. And he finds himself in legal troubles. And like you said, putting his name right on the felt, pretty much giving himself away, doing this without any licenses. Charging guys fees, trying to make some extra cash. It just goes to show you, man. I guess Gilbert Arenas isn't done with making bad decisions in his life.
I mean, there was so many things. Like they hired chefs, they hired people to serve drinks, they had companionship going on. They were treating this like a hotel, for crying out loud. Like, I've never heard a private residence be treated like a poker room, for crying out loud. Like, to have a private chef. Now, I know that they have money and they can do whatever they want, but like, they were literally treating this like you were going to a hotel for a few days and having a vacation. I mean,
how long did Gilbert Arenas honestly believe he was going to get away with this? I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to get away with this for too long before, Wynn got out or someone was upset about losing money. I mean, that's all it takes is for someone to go there, lose a bunch of money and be like, you know what? I know you're doing some shit that's illegal. I'm going to freaking tell somebody. And that's all it takes is one mouth to be open for this to spiral out like this.
It just makes me wonder, like, the guy made $150 million in his career in the NBA. You're telling me you have to rake for fees playing a poker game, making $150 million? Something seems a little off about that, right?
Yeah, it means he was having too many expenses and was living above his means. I mean, I know these players lose 50% of taxes and like 10 to 15% with agents, but still, even after all that, even if you probably also include his endorsements and everything, I mean, this is a guy who at least pocketed $50 to $75 million in his career. I mean, even if you don't invest that gives you hundreds, if not millions of dollars a year for the rest of your life if you manage it the right way. So I don't understand, how some of these guys run through all this money to where you have to do things like this to make some extra cash.
So here's the actual thing. So prosecutors say the group hired chefs, valets, and armed security guards to staff the game, as well as young women who served drinks, provided massages, and offered companionship to the poker players in exchange for tips, and that the co-conspirators took a cut of the servers' tips. I mean, this is like insane. This is insanity, like that I keep reading. And just for other purposes too. Gilbert Arenas is a huge influencer on Playback, by the way, which we work with too. And I think he works with Underdog. I think that's where he does a lot of his content stuff. I don't know what's going to happen to his content and what's going to happen to. I'll tell you right now, I think Underdog could possibly sever ties because they don't want to deal with the liability of him. I don't know about Playback, though, because, and I'm not saying this from a mean standpoint. I'm saying, like, they're a smaller up-and-coming business than Underdog is. They can afford to go without him, I feel like.
Yeah,
but,
Playback, obviously, Gilbert Arenas gets a lot of views and eyeballs on the Playback stream, so he may still be able to have that, but yeah, Gilbert Arenas won't be able to do this anymore, and he's definitely going to lose some things that he was having before. Like you said, like Underdog, they're probably not going to be with him anymore.
Yeah, this is a tough spot. Like, you made millions of dollars. Why do you have to be a greedy pig for more money? Like, now, you said something interesting a little bit before, that these guys make so much money that sometimes they don't know how to either invest it or to have a money management situation to make sure they don't lose all their money. Look at Allen Iverson, who had all that money, had an incredible career, never won a title, had an incredible career. I think, is he up for the Hall of Fame or did he make the Hall of Fame? I can't remember.
He's definitely in the Hall of Fame.
So he had a Hall of Fame career regardless of winning a title. I think he just got a lifetime deal with Reebok, I think. So he'll be fine, but he went bankrupt at a period of time. So did Antoine Walker, if you remember that whole situation where he made like $120 million and basically blew it all, essentially. First of all, it goes beyond my means to know what blowing $120 million.
Well, I guess what happens is when you have a lot of, cousins or family members, these guys have this mentality that they have to save everybody in their families, and they try to pay for everybody's expenses and just gives out money to too many people, and then buy a bunch of houses, buy a bunch of cars. That ends up adding up so much money. Taxes increase for the properties, and then they make a couple bad investments that ultimately cost them money, and next thing you know, you're $100 million in the hole. But I guess someone like the average person, middle-class person like us, we can't relate to that because we have to make our living on a much lower salary than that.
That's for sure. But we'll see what happens with Gilbert Arenas. All right, quickly, we'll go through some of these free agencies very quick. This one surprised me. Luka Doncic signing an extension for $165 million. If he waited one more year, he could have gotten a larger contract, right?
Yeah, but I think the reason why he's doing it now is because he's betting on himself. And I think in 3 years, he could get an even a bigger contract than what he got last year, because the max contracts are always based on the percentages of the cap. And the cap is going to keep skyrocketing each and every year. So Luka Doncic is going to bet on himself. I mean, we've seen the photos of how great in shape he's in. So
amazing.
He's going to be my early pick for probably preseason MVP. I think we're going to see the best of Luka. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to ball out these next 3 years. He's going to win over the Lakers ownership. And then after these 3 years, he'll be eligible, I believe, for a 5-year, $417 million $417 million total contract, which is obviously much more than that. I mean, that's paying him almost around an $80 million a year mark. So I guess for now, he'll have to make a little less. But if he ends up, winning out and betting on himself and succeeding, he'll end up making more money in the long run. And it also helps out the Lakers because say Luka plays one good year and then puts the weight back on and goes back to old Luka second or third year, maybe they could trade him and not have to give him that $400 million contract. So I believe that this benefits both parties by him taking the deal now and taking a shorter deal to hopefully that it pays off later on.
That's incredible what you just said, by the way. $80 million a year possibly down the road. Like, I remember when big contracts were $20 million a year, and that was like a big deal. $80 million a year possibly in like 3 years. Now you wonder why we can't afford to go to games anymore because of contracts like that. But he's in incredible shape. He's got to be like surprise transformation of the year. Like, and I think he said like he was playing pickleball and he was on a strict diet. Like, I knew he would figure it out eventually. Like, he was going to have to have a chance to make these contracts and to play. First of all, I think all the pressure will come off him once LeBron decides to go walking out the door. Because, first of all, asshole of the year goes to LeBron for not even showing up to Luka's press conference for the contract. I mean, is LeBron that self-centered?
Well, maybe LeBron didn't want to take, because if LeBron goes there, all the talk is going to be about him. I mean, LeBron James probably didn't want to take any of the spotlight off of Luka, but yeah, it just goes to show you where LeBron's mindset is. But I do think LeBron probably gave him some tips on how to get his body in good shape as well.
No, I agree with that for sure, because LeBron and I would say LeBron and Tom Brady were some of the best at I think each of them spent like $1 million a year just to keep their bodies in shape. But I don't know, maybe is that a hint that maybe LeBron is kind of seeing his way out of Los Angeles? I don't know.
A lot of speculation that this might be the final year. I mean, he'll become the first player ever, I believe, to play 23 seasons. He wears the number 23. So there's a lot of speculation that year 23 might be the last year of LeBron in the NBA. This might be his retirement tour.
So you're saying there's some synergy involved with that number?
Yeah.
All right. Quickly, some Knicks news. Mikal Bridges agrees to a $150 million extension with the Knicks. Not surprising. He demanded a trade out of my Nets to go to the Knicks. He is a very good player. Give him some time. He will grow into this team even more. I think this is a no-brainer. And I think he took less money.
Yeah, I think he didn't even take the max contract. I think the max contract would have been like over $160 million, I believe. So he left a lot of money on the table, but he knows that this is a team that's already playing Karl-Anthony Towns. They're already paying on Jalen Brunson. And with the uncertainty in the East, this is a team that's going to be right there again in the thick of it with them and the Cavaliers and the Magic and others to win the East. They could be playing in the NBA Finals this year. So he's a guy who knows how to win. He had decent success when he was on the Suns. They were in the NBA Finals. He's a two-way player that can help you on offense and defensive side of the ball. He can pass the ball, he can rebound, and he can score. He's a guy who is kind of like a Swiss Army knife that does a little bit of everything. So he's a perfect complement to Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. So I'm glad he did that. He's always been a team guy. He never misses games, so he's reliable. So I definitely think this contract is fair for him, and it goes to show you that he's willing to take less money to help out the team.
Yeah, most consistent guy, doesn't miss games. I think he had a game streak going. I think he still has a game streak going, if I'm not mistaken. But I hope the Knicks figure it out. I think it was a mistake letting Thibodeau go. I think that's going to be the most watched move of the entire offseason. Not a player for a change with the Knicks, but I think they're going to be a good team for the next couple of years. Last one, which this one was kind of shocking, not from that the contract was done. I was surprised that the Spurs gave De'Aaron Fox a max deal. Were you a little surprised?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised because, there was speculation on how all these players are going to fit. With them drafting Dylan Harper and having Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox, a lot of people are wondering, you're not going to be able to get all three of those guards on the court at the same time with Victor Wembanyama. So a lot of people were speculating as if, De'Aaron Fox could kind of just be like a placeholder for a year or two, and then ultimately you have Harper and Stephon Castle for the future. But it seems like they're really confident in Fox. They'll probably have Harper, who's only 19 years old, being that guy off the bench. They're kind of like their sixth man on the team. So it goes to show you they got faith in De'Aaron Fox, and De'Aaron Fox is a player who has showed he's made the playoffs before with Sacramento. He's been a really good player. He just got to stay healthy. And I think him and Victor Wembanyama, they must have a lot of faith in those guys being able to pair together. And, the confidence that they show just, proves to me that, they're expecting big things out of De'Aaron Fox. And when you give a guy a contract like that, he better deliver for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a great player. I have no doubt. The Spurs are going to be a team to watch for the next 4 to 5 years, at least. This team is young. It's got stars now. Wemby is now healthy, which is a big deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're competing playoffs starting this coming season. I just think they're going to be a really good team. And I think having De'Aaron Fox, who's got a little experience in the league, is going to help guys like Castle and Harper and all those guys. So I just think that's a big deal for this Spurs team to really grow into its own. Like, it reminds me a little bit of the Ginobili, the Parker, and the Duncan team a little bit in that regard, that it took some time for them to get on a roll. And then they were one of the most consistent playoff teams. They didn't win every year, but they were always competing for a finals every year, right?
Yeah, they definitely were. So I really like this team. I know the West is really hard. I mean, if you finish 12th in the West and missed the play-in tournament, I mean, that's like the 12th best team in the West is probably the 6th best team in the East. So, but they're going to be one of those 12 teams that are going to be ready to thick of it to the end of the year. I mean, we saw how close the standings were last year. It came down to the final couple of weeks, and the Spurs are going to be right there. And I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if they make the play-in tournament and then ultimately win a game or two and make the playoffs. You know, they're a young ascending team, and they're going to be a team that you're not going to want to see in a couple of years.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But that'll do it for this episode 284 of Empty the Bench here on the ETB Network. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We are 25 subscribers away from 1,000, so please go hit that subscribe button. It is important. It helps us grow. If you can't watch on the video side, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcasts, all platforms. And also, we are presented by Playback, playback.tv/ETB Network. So please go check us out as we do baseball. When the NBA comes back, we have other podcasts that we do on there. So please go over to our community, playback.tv/ETB Network, and go subscribe on there as well. Also, football shows coming back. We have actually, if you want to say, we have a recording date ready. And when is our first FP5 episode going to air?
So we're going to be coming back with our great college football show, Forever Power 5. It's going to be premiering Friday, August 22nd. So definitely make sure to stay tuned. We'll be previewing the we'll be previewing the college football season. We'll be talking about the Week 0 games, and I can't wait. It's going to be a tremendous college football season. We still got Deion Sanders involved. We got Bill Belichick now in his first season with North Carolina. So it's going to be a very interesting college football season.
Yeah, so make sure you tune into that. Also, we will have our football forecast NFL previews coming up a week after that. Excuse me. So NFL and college football back in the scheme in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So make sure you follow our social medias for the network at ETB Network to find out more. So that'll do it for episode 284. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. We will see you next week for another edition of Empty the Bench. Have a good day, everybody.